my friend, and welcome back. My name is Hannah, and today I'm going to be giving my first impressions of the new Melt Cosmetics Gemini set. I did get the two palettes, and I will be doing a look on each eye with one palette. I've already done my base off of camera, so if you're curious about anything that I mentioned in today's video, what I'm wearing on my face, what I'm doing in other pockets of the internet, I always have links in the description box down below. But I also have the original Gemini palette. I will put in some B-roll footage of the palettes, like I'll swatch them. I'll put both Gemini side by side, and then I'll do the second Gemini palette on another arm, just so you guys can really see. And I'll even zoom in on my original Gemini palette, because as you can see, the shade Gemini is just, it's so crumbly. I could never pick this up on a brush, and I tried to get my brush wet. I've tried using a denser brush, a fluffier brush, and nothing I chose like could pick up this shadow. But you can see that I've really like worked the other shadows in this palette. I think shortly after I got this Gemini palette, I got the Kaleidos Futurism one, the sci-fi green palette, and it is a very similar color story. And I think because I don't have to worry about any of those shadows in my palette, I started to reach for that one more, and that one became my favorite grungy green palette. But I truly loved this Gemini palette, and I didn't have any problems with like the shades puffing up or molding or anything like that. Again, it was just this one shade of Gemini, and it was the only one that had ever acted up. So I'm excited to have this in a re-updated formula, hopefully, and I hope that it still performs the same, because I thought that the quality was like really great. Again, I loved these shadows except for that one. The second Gemini palette has these beautiful like green and pinky tones in here. It's so pretty. It's just like looking at the palette version of a rose. But when I look at these palettes together and like the tones, they really remind me of Evelyn and Julie from Cyberpunk. So I think today's look, I'm going to try to work that out in some way. I feel like they both wore the same like eyeshadow look, but like Judy would use the Gemini and then Evelyn would use the Gemini too. I don't know, it's like pretty weird, the like similarities. I think Judy even looks like one of the founders of Melt Cosmetics. Like they look very similar. I don't know, maybe they've played Cyberpunk. That would have been really cool. Okay, so I'm gonna zoom in so you can get a closer look at what I'm doing on my eyes. Like I said, I'm gonna do one palette on one eye, the other palette on the other eye. So I'm gonna start with the Gemini 1, and I'm gonna do it on this eye. I'm gonna do the look that I would always do with this palette. And I think, again, that's just kind of how Judy does her makeup. But I'm gonna start with the shade Lorelei. It's more of like the mustardy yellow of the palette. And I'm just gonna take that right where my eye socket crease is. So far, I think the shadows are comparing in a similar way. It's easy for me to blend this shade on. And I'm just, again, working it right into that crease. And then I'm going to take the shade Fire OG, because it's more of like a yellowy kind of green. And I'm taking it on an E38, and I'm going to press it just a little bit below the crease. Just so we can get like a gradient kind of blend. The shadow itself is pretty easy to move around. I'm just trying to blend out my crease shade and this like in-between shade, so I still keep that mustard on top, but I also want to kind of smoke out the outer corner. This is one of the better melt formulas. I would compare the blendability of this palette to the She's and Parties palette. because I don't even have to work too hard to get the shade on and to work it where I need to. And that's the reason why the She's and Parties palette is even one of my favorite berry palettes. I'm gonna take the shade Bonnie, which is the black shade, and I'm just gonna pop it in the outer corner and smoke it out. I just want to add a little bit of depth to my eye. And then, do I have like a little thin brush? Yes, I do. I'm going to go back in with that Lorelei shade on... Oh, this is the Pract Small Blend, but I know it's one of the Sigma flat brushes. I say it's similar to the E25, but I'm just going to take it on the tip of the brush, and I'm going to just kind of blend that out. And then take that a little bit more of Bonnie. And with this Bonnie shade, I want to blend it into a shape where my eye is just more of like a cat eye. Because I think on the lid, I'm going to go in with the shimmer. Sometimes you could even take the shade Mochi, the lighter green, and take it on the lid if you just wanted to do an all matte look. I think having the brighter green on the lid looks really, really pretty. But this is kind of like my skeleton of looks that I make with this palette, because it's just pretty easy and kind of hard to like mess up. Like, it looks pretty good. Okay, and then I'm gonna take a flat brush and then take the shade Leo, and I'm just gonna pop that under my eye. And I'm taking that because it's a little bit of a contrast between greens. And I think the shade I want to go in the waterline will be a little bit brighter. And then I'm going to go in with Lorelei and just kind of blend that out. I think that looks really, really pretty. And then let's go in with the shade Gemini. It's not breaking up, but I don't know if I really see it on my brush. Well, I guess I do. I'm going to wet my brush because that's how I wear all my shimmers. And let's see what happens. I'm just gonna kind of tap and blend. It's acting more like a lid topper, like it's not really pigmented. Oh, well, okay, maybe if you don't get it wet, it has a little bit more pigment. How does that make sense? But there's more shade that covers, like I'm getting more gold over my lid than when I just sprayed it. But now I have more of like a gold wash to my lid. That looks really pretty. But I can still see the other tones that I used underneath. Like I can see that green right here. I can see where it meets the yellow. So I think this Gemini works better as a shade topper. That brush that I took black on, I'm just gonna kind of blend these shades together. Perfect, and then I'm gonna line my lid and do my lashes, and I will come back for the next look. For the Gemini 2 palette, and thinking about Evelyn's character, she's a very sultry kind of character. She plays one of the love interests. She's a big character in the story. And this palette gives me very sultry kind of vibes. So I think I'm gonna start with the shade Lovesick, and I'm gonna pop it like right in the outer corner. I'm gonna just start carving it out right here. Oh, that's so pretty. And I'm just gonna build and work this shade up. And kind of take it on the inside. And just try to wash whatever I have left on the brush into the parts of the crease that I haven't touched, because I'm gonna take the shade LX Queen, which is more of like a purple. And if this is your first time on my channel, reds and purples are my favorite to just kind of have in the outer corner. I think they're my favorite color combo. And you can kind of deepen that red shade with this purple, or so I hope. And I'm just working that in. And then I want to take a flat brush, and I'm going to take the shade Schmood, and I'm going to wet my brush. This was the discount code that you could use to get 20% off the palette. And I'm just going to take this on my lid. This is really pretty. I mean, there's a pop of like orange in here that's really pretty, or at least it's like coming off orange under the lighting that I'm in. And I'm going to take just a little bit more to take it just a little bit further. How does that look? I think that looks really pretty. And then I'm going to go back in with that shade I took, LX Queen, and just kind of tap and blend. And then I'm going to take Lovesick one more time, just so I can have that red tone in here. It doesn't quite disappear. I may have taken it a little bit too far, it's okay. You can't really tell, it's all right. And then what am I gonna do for an inner corner? I'll take the shade Bella and just kind of tap it in. Just so it kind of offsets the really like deep plumminess of the outer corner. And then what am I gonna take on my lower lid? How about I take Boy Mum and tap it underneath. This is like a brownie kind of green. This is really pretty. And then I'm going to take a little bit of Almond Eyes and just kind of blend it in. Let me finish my lash on this side, and then I can give you some of my final thoughts. Oh, did I even come back and tell you? So on the waterline, I took one of my NYX like faux whites, and I think you can take anything that's a bit more yellow leaning. I think if you have the ColourPop Bambi, I think it's the shade Meadow, one of the eyeliners from that collection, I would use that with my Gemini and Sci-Fi palette a lot. And then I took the shade, and then I also took the shade Luna on the inner corner, just to kind of brighten up the look. So these are the final look. I did take that NYX White Linen shade again in this eye, and I love that eyeliner plays well with both looks. I know both looks look similar, but for me, I feel like they were different experiences, but they're similar, and I don't know, I guess that's kind of also Judy and Evelyn. And so I think that's kind of cool. But let's talk about the palettes. So I'm super thrilled that I even got that Gemini shade. out of the palette onto my brush. That's really exciting. This looks and feels very familiar. I could make a old versus new comparison video. If you would like to see me make something like that, let me know in the comments down below. Because now I'm kind of curious, like, do they work the same way? But it could also be because I love the Sci-Fi Green palette from Claydos. The Claydos formula is a very buttery kind of formula where you can really pack it on and blend it in and build it up. I said earlier when I was playing with it that it reminded me of the She's in Parties, but it just felt more like moist. Like, it just felt better, like more creamy, I guess is the word that I'm trying to think of. It's just super gorgeous. And even that shade Gemini on my lid, it looks really, really pretty. So for this second look, I think it's super pretty. These are the kind of plummy tones that I would reach for constantly. I think it's very, very pretty. I love a red and purple combo, and you can have a pop of pink in there. And then just the way that the green underneath really complements my eye color and the rest of the shades that I'm using on my lid. It's really, really pretty. And I love the shade that I took in the inner corner. I think it's just such a flattering pink. Very nice. What I will say is, as I'm looking at the palette and I've been playing with them on my eye, I could also film a She's in Parties palette side by side, because the shade on my lid, the shade Schmood, looks very similar, if I'm not mistaken, to the She's in Parties shade of the She's in Parties palette. It's like the same kind of tone. I think the Schmood shade might have more of like an orange shift to it, but I don't know. I like want to do a comparison. I think that they're similar. I know it's common to feel that the Melt formula or the Melt releases can be hit or miss. Some people either really love them, some people really hate them. I think this is one of the better ones, and I'm just saying, as a first impression, I think that it's way better off than the original Gemini palette. I think if you have the original Gemini palette and you super love it, I think it's time to let go of that one and purchase this new one, because I just think that the formula is so much better. And I like that the Gemini 2 is of a similar formula, and it's a really pretty color story, and you can go really deep and really light with both palettes, which is a plus for me, because sometimes, I don't know, I like to do really deep dramatic looks like this, and then sometimes I like to just do one or two shades and then run off to work. So I think it just really depends on what the mood is, and I think that that's awesome that these palettes can provide that. But I would love to hear your thoughts and opinions down below. Are you going to pick up any of these palettes? Are you going to replace your original Gemini palette? Are you happy that you can actually get the Gemini palette now? I'd love to hear your thoughts and opinions down below, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye.